The Whiskey Zeppelin Affair, President Harding's Secret Aerial Empire. In the annals of American presidential scandal, few incidents eclipse the drama and audacity of the Teapot Dome scandal. But buried deep in obscure congressional records, fragmented diary entries, and the confidential memos of long-deceased cabinet members lies evidence of a far more brazen and airborne misdeed from the Harding administration. It is a tale of corruption, clandestine airships, bootlegged whiskey, and a forgotten dirigible that once floated above the Great Plains bearing the seal of the President of the United States. This is the story of the Whiskey Zeppelin Affair. When Warren G. Harding assumed the presidency in 1921, the nation was still reeling from World War I and careening headlong into the chaotic morality experiment known as prohibition. The 18th Amendment had outlawed the manufacture, transport, and sale of alcohol in 1920, and Harding, like many of his contemporaries, paid lip service to the noble experiment while indulging in a steady stream of bootleg liquor behind closed doors. Harding's inner circle, known as the Ohio Gang, was a cabal of political cronies and opportunists who reveled in government largesse and backroom deals. It was widely known that Harding himself preferred poker, cigars, and whiskey to policy briefings, and the executive mansion reportedly hosted boozy, jazz-fueled soirees even as federal agents raided speakeasies across the country. But few knew the extent to which Harding's administration was involved not merely in enjoying illegal alcohol, but in orchestrating one of the most elaborate bootlegging operations in American history, conducted from the skies. In a memo dated June 3, 1922, later declassified under the obscure Presidential Communications Review Act of 1979, a Navy Airship Division officer named Lieutenant Commander Felix Dutch Heppenstall wrote, "Per Executive Directive 47A, work begins immediately on outfitting a naval dirigible for special executive use, requiring a concealed hold and long-distance range. Cargo described as agricultural spirits of critical national interest." At the time, the U.S. Navy operated a modest but ambitious fleet of dirigibles, massive airships developed for reconnaissance and transport. Under the guise of testing air-based supply logistics, Secretary of the Interior Albert Fall, infamous for his role in the Teapot Dome oil leases, approved a secret allocation of $2 million for the construction of a modified dirigible, the USS Constitution II, known internally as Old Ironsides in the Sky. Rather than hauling mail or medical supplies, the USS Constitution II was repurposed to ferry barrels of Canadian whiskey from remote depots in Alberta to hidden airfields in Nebraska, Wyoming, and even Ohio, Harding's home state and political stronghold. Flight logs recovered decades later from an abandoned Army airfield in Wyoming revealed that between July 1922 and March 1923, the Constitution II completed at least 14 nocturnal voyages across the northern border. But it wasn't just a smuggling operation, it was a mobile speakeasy. Testimonies from surviving members of the 1923 White House kitchen staff described extravagant Zeppelin parties, where Harding and his guests would board the dirigible at a disguised hangar near Camp Meade, now Fort Meade, and drift serenely over the Chesapeake Bay, sipping aged scotch and listening to live jazz bands flown in from Chicago. Former steward Mitchell Grady, interviewed by the Washington Clarion in 1959, recalled, "The president liked to toast the stars. He'd raise his glass to Orion and say, 'This is America, free, wild, and damn thirsty.'" These flights, protected by bribed Navy personnel and conducted under heavy secrecy, became Harding's favorite escape from the pressures of Washington. Rumors swirled among the press corps of presidential absences, but were dismissed as gossip or attributed to Harding's known health issues. What brought the Whiskey Zeppelin affair to a crashing halt was not a whistleblower or federal raid, but rather a spectacular accident. On March 12, 1923, the Constitution II, heavy with 600 gallons of Glenfiddich and a live string quartet, encountered an unexpected lightning storm while crossing the Dakotas. At 4:17 a.m., a lightning strike ignited an unsecured crate of rum on board. Though the ship managed to land in a snowy field outside Fargo, the subsequent fire destroyed most of the hull and much of the cargo. Harding was not on board that night, having canceled at the last minute due to an emergency meeting with the Veterans Bureau, a meeting that would later be linked to another scandal. 2 crewmen died in the blaze. But the crash attracted local farmers and reporters, who were baffled by the smoldering barrels of fine liquor strewn across the prairie. The Navy immediately cordoned off the area and issued a statement blaming the wreck on experimental mail delivery operations gone awry. Local papers printed the official story, but a few skeptical journalists quietly filed away their notes. One, Clara H. Wexley of the St. Paul Tribune, tried to publish her findings under the headline "Whiskey from the Sky, Presidential Air Party Ends in Flames," but was silenced when her editor received an unexpected visit from a Justice Department representative. The dirigible's logs were incinerated. Survivors were paid off or reassigned. The ship was quietly written out of official Navy airship records. But some documents survived in attics, filing cabinets, and forgotten archives, waiting for a patient historian to stitch them together. When President Harding died unexpectedly in San Francisco on August 2, 1923, under circumstances still debated, some speculated that the stress of impending scandal had worn on him. Others whispered of poisoning or a broken heart over a mistress. But in hindsight, the collapse of his airborne empire may have played a pivotal role in his final days. The Whiskey Zeppelin affair was never formally investigated. Calvin Coolidge, upon assuming office, made swift moves to distance himself from the Ohio Gang, and many files relating to Harding's private activities were quietly destroyed during routine White House transitions. Today, few Americans know that the 29th president may have presided not just over a scandal-ridden administration on the ground, but over an illegal empire in the skies. The Whiskey Zeppelin affair remains an astonishing example of how far power can be abused when shrouded in secrecy, ego, and ethanol. Though the USS Constitution too burned to ash, and Harding's reputation was forever tarnished, a bronze compass recovered from the crash site still sits in a glass case in the basement archives of the Naval Air Station at Lakehurst. It bears a single engraved phrase, worn by time and smoke, "For the freedom to toast the heavens." A fitting epitaph for a scandal as unbelievable as it is true, at least according to those of us who still believe that history hides its wildest secrets in plain sight.